The lack of Latino representation in Hollywood shapes how the world sees us, and at times, how we see ourselves. According to the USC's Annenberg Inclusion Initiative report of the 100 top-grossing films from 2007 to 2019, only 4.2% of them were directed by a Latino. We need more Latino stories told, more Latino filmmakers spotlighted, and more studios to invest in Latino films. We also need programs like the McDonald's Spotlight Dorado, whom we're partnering with today to make this conversation possible. Please help me welcome Melina Matsukas, Janixa Bravo, Juan Felipe, and Jesus Zelaya.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Curly Velasquez. I'm one of the founders of Federal, which is BuzzFeed's Latino vertical. We built one of the largest Latino platforms on the internet. So this is actually one of my favorite things to talk about, which is our identities in a way, both what makes it really beautiful, what makes it problematic, all the things that we've accomplished, but all the things that we have left to do. So I wanted to just dive in and have this open conversation. Janixa, I wanted to start with you. I know that you are from Panama. How has that informed your art? How do you move forward in representing who you are in your work?
With regards to place, my parents are Panamanian. I was born in New York. I moved to Panama when I was a baby and lived there until I was 13. My mom was in the military and we moved around a lot, and I'd never really lived in one place for more than 2 to 3 years until I moved to New York, which is to say that displacement is a big theme in a lot of my work, this feeling of not having a place to call home or a place to sort of plant seeds. I think the other part of your question is about how Latinness plays into the work.
Absolutely.
I think that for me, those are tethered, right? I have always felt sort of othered and alien, and that is also a theme that I like to play with a lot.
Alina, the same question for you. How have you kind of brought your identity into your work as well? How have you allowed it to inspire the different things that you do?
I mean, my identity's always been really important to me to show and, to tell these stories that we don't usually get to represent and to be a part of that and bringing those to light, even if it's me or new filmmakers coming up. I think how I've seen it, I grew up in the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. My mother's from Cuba. Woo! And yes, okay. But, I base everything in community. And that's always been really important to me, to show community and how tight we can be and how supportive we can be of each other, and to see that on screen and also in real life, There's power in that kind of family and a shared identity. So that's always been really important to me, and really to give voice to the unheard,
Absolutely.
Like she said, like Janixa just said, I felt othered as well, but I also knew that my voice was super unique. And there is a place for that because I wasn't seeing myself represented or my people represented on screen. And so I really wanted to be a part of breaking down those barriers, and widening that stage.
I feel like you also have a lot of cool intersectionalities, in your background, from your parents to even just being from New York. I'm sure that kind of allows for a different voice in all of your different...
Yeah, and I mean, especially in terms of what a Latina is, right?
Absolutely.
I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, and that's absolutely okay.
I'm also a Black woman,
Yes,
very proud of that. And especially in Latino representation, you don't see a lot of Black Latinas,
You're right.
It's so refreshing to sit up here with Janixa and be a part of that community and to be able to support each other in our endeavors. Because that's my sister, and we've been left out of that conversation. And so I think it's really important that we're here.
Juan, you're from Bogota. I mean, not Bogota, you're from Colombia. I don't want to say you're from Bogota.
Yeah, I'm from Medellin, Colombia. And I actually really like what you just said about aliens, because I came to this country as an alien. That was literally my document. It said alien number X, and my first feature film is called Unidentified Objects. And even though it has a little bit of a sci-fi twist, it's really the story of misfits, of aliens, of people who don't have a place in the world. And there's, I think, one thing very important to acknowledge within communities is I feel, listen, I got the opportunity to immigrate to the United States. I'm also white. So I'm also not a minority in my home country. So I think as a community, it's very important to accept the privilege that we have in general, and that is not something that is bad, but acknowledging it gives access to conversation and to elevating our community.
And it's just like you also had a very multi-dimensional like experience growing up as well that's kind of informed your work.
Yeah. Well, I'm Mexican American, and most Mexicans are mestizo, and that is the mixture, of a ton of different cultures. And you grow up understanding that and knowing that for the longest time, the mestizo was at the bottom of the rung, and because of thoughts of purity. But, as much of us are figuring out now, purity is a lie. And if that can be true in life, that can be doubly true in art. And I carry those thoughts with me and those feelings, just even picking out visual elements in my work, or mixing genres that people are like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, you can mix it, and it can be beautiful because we exist. And it's that, and also the work ethic of the Mexican culture. I grew up working the fields. I have no imaginings of what that is. It's what's done up in where I'm come from in Washington State, and how my family came up in the world and did things. So there has not been a single day on set that it was ever harder than that. So my thankfulness and my understanding of how hard life can be is definitely doubled down just by what I am and what I come from, and hopefully in the art that shows in some way.
I never imagined this life. Did y'all ever imagine doing this, being here in this moment?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually,
I would agree.
How do you do that? How do you find that energy and stick to it?
I think, it has so much to do with the woman who raised me. My mother, super strong-willed. She was in the military, like I said before. Maybe I didn't say that. I think I did, though, but my mother was in the military. And besides her, there were lots of women around, everyone very alpha. And that had seemed quite normal to me. Very alpha women that didn't seem unusual, right? And all of those women constantly said how they felt or what they wanted or what they needed. They weren't always saying exactly what they felt, but some version of it. Yeah. That's not what this is for. Anyways, there was a dream and I saw it and I wanted it, and my mother never said it wasn't possible. I don't think she understood it. She didn't have a comp for it. When Melina was speaking at the very beginning, I started as a stylist. That was my first job inside of film and television. And I remember Melina's early work. And when I looked you up and I saw you, I thought, oh, there's actually maybe room here because she's here.
That's so touching.
It's just true. I'm just being honest.
I would agree exactly with what you said, in that I always saw it as well. And maybe it's the Latina mother culture of these alpha females who can kind of achieve anything, right? And also, my mom, she struggled a lot. And so I felt this responsibility to make her struggle worth it. She sacrificed so much for me to have opportunities that she didn't have. And so I felt like, okay, I have to make it. And the same thing, it was like she dreamed big, and so, she passed that on to me.
For me, the believing, I think now I'm a completely different person, and I'm like, okay, let's get it. I'm ready. It's not, nobody's gonna stop me, and I feel unstoppable, and I'm gonna go get what I want. But before, it was hard. It was hard to when you're working on a set as a PA and you're working many, many, many hours, and then all of a sudden, it's hard to see yourself sitting there. Or even, where I grew up, I don't know any filmmakers from Medellin. There's no maybe now there are more, but there's really not that you can say, oh, there's a playwright that I can go watch in a local theater. Oh, there's this director that I love. So you don't really see that. So at first it was even nothing I was considering. I love movies. I always loved telling stories, and it's something that I love. I was naturally levitating towards, but it wasn't until somebody told me why not do it for a job? Why not just pursue it? That it opened my eyes and it allowed me to just go for it. But it wasn't as clear, just because it was something that it wasn't on the radar necessarily. It was, even though it's something that I feel I was born to do.
Yeah. It's almost like you need an adult spark to do that for you, to allow you to know that it is possible. What about you, sis? What was your experience?
Man, I'm sure in my later life I can romanticize it a little
Yeah,
more for
yeah.
myself, and I'd love to line up with that. But in all honesty, I like look back on my life and I just see like an intense absence of logic that was like constructive.
Blind belief.
What advice would you have for people who are wanting to break in, wanting to kind of live out their dreams and express their art, and taking that chance of being like, I'm gonna do it, I'm here, let me take up room?
With regards to like advice and taking up space, I think it's all again swarming in what we've been discussing. Some of it is like blind belief, some of it's like high bet, and validation is useful, but there are going to be more no's than there are yeses. And so if you need the yeses to keep moving forward, I think you just got to be aware that there's going to be less of those, or they're just going to be. I mean, I feel that even now, and I'm certainly much more comfortable now than I've been in a very long time, and there's still a lot of rejection. So it's that I've just decided I'm special and I'm supposed to be doing it. And I also am not operating with the idea of scarcity, right? I felt I was raised with this belief that there wasn't that much real estate. Yet when I like sort of got to the terrain, I saw these men who somehow there seemed to be constantly room for a new man, right? Like this industry loves a hot new white star in all variations, in front of the camera, behind the camera, next to the camera, in the camera, all of it, right? And so the real estate seemed to keep growing, but when I got there, there was scarcity. And I think I just was like, there isn't scarcity. I'm gonna add my lane next to the thing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best point, is like there's room for all of us, and we all have very different experiences and voices, and we're not a monolith, right? And so your story is just as important as the next one, and you have to believe that first, right? You have to be loud, you have to take up space, like you belong here. But it starts within yourself, you know? So if you're backing down, if you're taking those no's and rejection and you're becoming deterred, like you have to have thick skin to make it here, you know? And you have to believe just how unique what you offer is, you know? And so I just say keep working.
Forgetting the famine mentality of like that there's not enough to go around for everyone. We have to have that almost like naive belief that there is enough room for everyone. And that it is like that in art. No one's gonna do exactly what you're gonna do, and you can be happy for people, you can enjoy people. And find your tribe, because I would venture to say not a single one of us is up here alone. You know, there's a ton of people helping hands, maybe even rivals or anyone. Like it all played its part in getting you there. And you know, I think that's kind of an important thing to carry on as you build something, and never be above anything. You know, not a story, an opportunity, any of that. You know, the best things are built firmly with your feet on the ground. You know.
I agree with what they're saying. I feel often we are delusional in the opposite way when we put ourselves more obstacles than we have. I think you have to be delusional in the right direction of like, yeah, I actually can conquer the world, and have that delusion, believe in yourself and put in the work, because ultimately it's all about just every project you make, you're gonna grow exponentially.
So now we're in Hollywood, right? We're seeing a lot of different things. We're seeing not only just a lack of representation of Latino stories, but kind of like the types of stories that we're seeing. I kind of always joke, and it might get me in trouble sometimes, but a lot of times what we see are like the stories of like save la tienda, like we have to save the store, you know, or like gentrification or the immigration story. Do you find that it is hard when you're going into these meetings with people who are outside of your experiences? Number one, having to convince them that we can live outside of our trauma, we can tell more stories. Like, what are some of the difficulties, or do you find that you've had difficulties going into these rooms?
I mean, I think the hardest part is that we're not in those rooms, you know? And I think the important part is also that, I mean, to create more of us on the other side.
Yeah.
I think we know the value of our stories. And so it's a lot easier when we're talking to ourselves, you know? I mean, white people do that all the time, you know?
Yeah.
White people love to see a white story. And we like to support each other too, you know? So it's important that like we're not just the filmmakers behind the camera, but that we're also making the pieces of material. Because when that happens, and we're not othered anymore, it's beautiful. That's why I always go back to community, right? It's about building with people who understand and see the value in your stories.
Yeah, and you don't have to like explain certain nuances because the other person just gets
Right,
it.
yeah, there's already like a shorthand, you know?
Yeah.
We speak the same language, so now we can just build and challenge each other and elevate, you know?
Yeah.
I think also with the success of other stories of ours, then the world starts saying, oh, there's value in this market. We need more, like just like this. And you're like, well, I'm not gonna be like that, but there's this other story that I've been wanting to tell, and now we've proven, you know, the value of it. And so that I think now the world is becoming more open. As with streaming, it's become more global. It's become a more global audience, you know?
I could talk for hours about annoying conversations had in, production meetings and pitches. But I think that the number one thing that pops into my head is that it's like a Latino story is the genre. Like that is the thing. That's what it's about, and it's not, if I write something and as soon as they see my last name, it's about someone who's Latino. It's like, no, this is a story about loss. This is a story, about something else, told with people who just happen to be of a certain culture. And I want to transcend. I want to get into the more universal thoughts and things and use our art to do that. And I'm stubborn about using, the faces and the types of people that I grew up around and that I am interested in to tell these stories. So, have the awkward conversations again and again and again until they start to hear it from all of us, and then a shift happens. Because there are flowers growing in the desert, man. I mean, Spotlight Dorado gave me an opportunity to even just be here, and that's a program made for people like us that don't get a chance. And, and I got it, and I hope many, many more get one after,
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you want me to answer this question?
Oh, yeah.
I am not always, it's happening more recently, but I'm not always invited into Latin spaces. And I know that's not like maybe the sexiest vibe on this stage in this moment, but it's just true.
No, you have to talk about that.
I've been working for a minute now, and I have stated my Latinness always from the very beginning. Spanish is my first language, or Castellano, if you're speaking to some annoying people who'll be like, Castellano? And I'm like, guys, you know what I'm saying. Anyways, but Spanish has been my first language, and I think of myself as Black Latin, Afro-Latin, but it doesn't mean that other people have always thought that. So I have actually, it's more recent that I've had those opportunities, and those opportunities have come, I think, because of my successes. And when I was less successful or early in my rise, I wasn't the right tone, I wasn't the right shade.
And now they're like, let's claim you.
I didn't have the right hair texture. I didn't have all, I think that I look American, whatever that means, or I just look not like I wasn't checking off the right boxes. So I haven't been invited into enough of those spaces to be able to really comment on that question.
But even like if you talking about it now, like it is really important for people to hear that and to face it, because you are a face of the culture and the community. And I think everybody needs to talk about it. They need to acknowledge it. We need to see that in our content, in our shows, in our movies. And that's why it's kind of like almost like a little bit more work, a lot of it more work, because there's so many different voices and so many boxes that you feel that when you go in, you're like, where to start, But what about you, Juan?
Well, yeah, when you ask about the rooms, I'm still also saying I'm more of a finding the flower in the desert kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Literally like walking and trying to find wherever there's an opportunity. And I think that builds a lot of resilience, because you realize that when you are passionate about something and you are driven enough, you're just gonna find the way eventually. There's gonna be, but when it comes to like the industry, the decision makers, like all of that, it's like, think about the disparity on payment, for example, right? Things like that are like, oh yeah, we believe in that, but we're not necessarily taking action on that. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's just like, as you say, you're having the right people in the other side and having the honest conversations about the things, because I want to watch their movies. Yeah. Like, I want to watch authentic, unique perspectives, and those are the movies that excite me, and those are the movies that I want to make. And I know I come from a very different, unique place, and I have and I'm different shape in the way I want to say. So it's just the power of the stories that we're gonna that are gonna shape culture, and is actually should be incredibly exciting for studios to have diversity, because it means we're gonna see a lot of different things that are gonna start that are gonna bring more viewers.
Absolutely. And then Jesus, you mentioned your film that kind of got you here. Will you tell us about the program?
Yeah, well, I saw the ads for it, and yeah, you take that leap, and you have to forget that, you know, can I or can't I, and you forget that word permission, man, and you submit and put it in there. And
Were you already doing it, and then you sent some like?
Yeah, like I had this idea for this project, but it's funny how like you see an opportunity and all of a sudden that idea gets real concrete very fast.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I say, I've been thinking about it for years.
Yeah.
And yeah, we submitted, and you know, it goes through a rigorous judging process, and then in a very surprising way, the 3 finalists are announced, and that was a really beautiful moment. And you receive a $75,000 check for your short film,
Yes.
or as I call it, enough money to make a Mexican nervous. But and you make your peace with it, you know. And it's rigorous, it's intense, but immensely rewarding, and you make some great friends. You know, Spotlight Dorado for me wasn't just a program or entity. It's the faces of the people that I've worked with, and some of them I'm seeing right now smiling out there. Really, really amazing people, just simply trying to do something good, you know, and that's what it is for me. It's what it has been, and yeah, and then we ended up winning.
Amazing.
And they do that in a national
give it up.
vote, and you know, people get to see your movie, and they keep trying to convince me that I'm like a rock star or something, because they're very, very sweet, and it's been lovely, man. I've loved every minute of it.
Do you feel like programs like this are super important because they open up the doors in a lot of ways?
I mean, they are the doors, you know. It just gives you another film, another thing. Hey, and even then, it's still hard, man. It's still a fight. Even if you can sort of show these things and you get those asterisks next to your name, every time you're pitching the next project, it's starting all over again. And you know, but it's going through a rigorous program like Spotlight Dorado that gives you the confidence moving forward. It's like, I did it, you know. There was tight turnarounds and all these things went wrong, and you landed on your feet. You still did it, you know. And that's one thing that with my Latino people, man, that I'm just so proud. Like, don't get worried, get to work, you know.
Don't get worried. Do y'all find like on other aspects too, like on other levels of different projects, y'all just figure it out in the moment? Is it just like that kind of like wing it?
I mean, I think what he said is like, it's a fight. It's all a fight. Filmmaking is a fight. Like, you have to be a warrior, like, you know, to finish your film and then to edit your film. And then it's always, you know, in the edit, oh, I wish I could have done this or changed that to get it made. I mean, and some of them are years in the making, many, many years in the making. And some, you know, happen overnight. And you just never know, you know? So you kind of have to put your eggs in many baskets. And keep coming up with ideas, you know? And I find a lot of satisfaction from producing other people's work and being a part of their rise and creating space and using my experiences to create more space for the next generation.
Yes.
So,
which a lot of people don't do. Like, there are a lot of, you hear a lot about people who are gatekeeping, specifically in Hollywood, I would say, who get to a certain spot and they don't know how to turn around and kind of be like, come in, and you're doing that with your company.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. Like, I'm not really like a competitive person. I love family, and I think, you know, that's part of my upbringing. I love family, I love community, and I see the joy in that. And that's what filmmaking is. It's collaboration. It's not a one-man show. You can't give me $75,000 and I go make a short by myself. You know, like, that just doesn't happen. Like, it's the nature of our business, and so there's so much satisfaction in being able to share that rise, you know? And we sacrifice so much of our life for that, so why would you want to do that alone? And I think it's the fight. Like, the fight is exhausting, and it's hard to
so
see
tired.
your achievements
So
when you're
tired.
just like battling it out in every aspect. So I mean, I had the same experience when I finished my first film. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this again, you know? And now, like, I've had time to recover and heal my trauma. And I saw, you know, and also live in the success of it, you know, and those
There
the
are a lot of
success of my
highs that
fights.
came from it. Yeah.
And see what I achieved and really be it. But when you're in it, it's hard to see outside of that. But I also think, like, you know, it's part of the process, and you have to take it as lessons, you know, to make yourself stronger. And like, everything is a lesson. The no's are a lesson. And to be a better artist, you know, to challenge yourself, like, to keep working on your craft. You know, I mean, I'm always a student. I'm never not learning. I'm never not finding. It's never easy.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to like really dedicate yourself to being a student and learning and really, you know, humble yourself. I think you said that right. Like, nothing is above you. And that humility really goes a long way.
Yeah.
And there's lessons in all of it.
I was gonna say, especially on filmmaking, you can think, you know, it doesn't matter the budget, doesn't matter, like, you show up on set and something's gonna go wrong, and the job becomes about resilience, about problem solving, about collaboration. And that's the nature of the beast. That's what we do. Like, it's ultimately comes down to solving problems. And if you can do that and also like add value and follow the ideas. So I feel one thing is just surrounding yourself with people who believe in you and people who you want to go to war with.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
And I think for me, at least, that's kind of where I found a few people who are becoming my family, and it's like, that's my close circle, and we go together and we're stronger.
Speaking of collaborators, if you have an idea that sucks, do you have people in your lives that tell you, like, not so much?
Too many. Mostly myself, though.
No one's louder than you.
Oh my God. You're like, this sucks. I don't even want to try.
That, though. You want to make sure you want to getting more comfortable or more successful or having more ease doesn't mean that people aren't saying no, right? I think at least you want a close circle of people that can hold you accountable. I mean, I definitely want a lot of people to not say anything to me, but the people who I trust and who see me.
And respect.
Yeah, because it's also like, you know, you can't share the work with everyone, especially at its early stages, because not everyone is good at looking, reading, watching with the intention of what are you trying to make. A lot of the times people they're like, I would have done it like, and that's not, when you're invited into someone's process, it's about being inside of, I think this is what you mean, and so how do I help you make the thing that you mean?
Yeah, because as you get kind of older, I guess, in the business, and you start to have more and more successes, does it get hard to allow somebody to be like, no, I know what I'm talking about? Like, no, I don't really know.
I direct in television, and this is not always sort of permissible, but it's not always okay to say that you don't know. I try to welcome an environment where people get to say that, but I've certainly been on sets or in rooms where saying you don't know is like a death sentence, right?
Really?
That it could really be a nail in the coffin. Yeah, because it can say for some people you're not supposed to be here. And I'm already in this body battling the I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And then when I'm like, I don't know, it's like you really shouldn't be here, you know?
How do you fake the funk then? How do you find that balance of being like, I'm cool, I'm confident with, I don't know what the hell that piece of thing
I'm
is
in
called.
my 40s, so I just am like, I'm really okay. I am just really okay. Like the beauty of being in my 40s, I'm just like, I can't. This is what it is. I feel very good with myself. I know I have something that I know someone else does not have. It is not repeatable. And you either you want to do it with me, you want to support me, or you don't. And that's fine because there's somebody else that does.
Absolutely.
But that's about being in my 40s. Now, in my 30s, I was like, oh God.
So it'll get better as we kind of...
Yeah, I just got more comfortable with myself, right?
Become
Like
more secure.
my brain got better. So when my brain got better, I cared a little less about how people saw me, because if I spent a lot of time thinking about how people saw me, I would not be on this stage right now, right? Like I can use just enough degrees of it to like knock myself down, to pick myself up, but I can't focus on who thinks I'm supposed to be up here or not. I got to focus on the fact that I know I am.
Yeah. Which is not easy, I think. Like we were talking about, I'm like, that's something that I think me and a lot of other people that I know probably have to work on. Wildest dreams for y'all, like in the future, in terms of not just your own creations, but kind of like how would you like to see the landscape of your identities be represented? Like what would be like an ideal, like movie, shows, music videos, like what's wildest dreams do you feel for the future?
I think for me that entertainment reflects the world that we live in, right? And it's not dominated by any one group or any one particular voice, and that the opportunities are, diverse and the voices are diverse. That to me is hopefully not a pipe dream. But it's also our beauty. I feel like, our experiences are so vast and so different.
Absolutely.
And I want to see that represented. Like, I don't want to just see like a white Hispanic, entertainment world. Like, I want to see people that look like me and don't look like me, and those are always really interesting stories when they're really specific and very different.
Yeah, it goes back to those nuances that we were talking about, like the Bronx talk, even LA talk. Like, I talked to my sister who's like a hood girl from LA, and I'm like, you have an accent, because instead of saying yes, she goes, yes. Or instead of being like, oh, more than likely I'll be at the party, she goes, more than likely I'll be there. And I'm like, girl, we have an accent. And I want to see that represented in our stuff too.
More stories and more entry points, opportunities for us to just get started. I think that's the thing. And then, even just with the next generations, I'm noticing I'm seeing like just getting the job as the end point. It's like, they're on there. It's like, no, man, that's just the beginning. And focusing on the quality of our storytelling, because we can't just be good. Like if we get the opportunity and the film comes out so, it sucks to say, and it's a horrible burden, but it's like you then become the example for like, you see what happens when they get a chance, and it doesn't turn out that good. So I just hold myself to a manic standard of quality that maybe I meet, maybe I don't, but at least I'm trying, and I know I can go to sleep soundly with that. But yeah, the other part of it was just the entry points, and just to, if you forgive the pun, put the spotlight on Spotlight Dorado again, to just see more of these things, and see us taking those opportunities and submitting to these sort of programs, because even if you have a half-baked idea, and I'm talking to anyone here who would want to submit, put it in anyway, because just your submission keeps that door open, it keeps that thing alive. Yes, maybe for you, but maybe for someone else. And we have to be as selfless and embracing, not only in our lives, but our professional lives like that. And see what happens, man, and keep that door wide open and run through.
It's all me submitting later. I'm like, I too have a little
Get
film
on it, buddy.
I would like to. What about you, Janissa?
I'm reminded that I think it's like 2015, 16, 17. It's one of those years in there. I had a short film, and I had read this article. There was a filmmaker there who had a feature. It was a $2-3 million movie that was selling for, $10 to $15 million. But in the article, it also comes out that their next movie is going to be this like $300 million movie. And there's this paragraph that it features Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams, and they both talk about sitting across from him and seeing themselves, and it being impossible to say no to this person because they saw themselves in him. And I thought, wow, that is never gonna happen to me. And so when I think about the future, I would love for a young filmmaker to be able to repeat that exact thing. And it's that they're sitting across from Melina, and it's that.
And I got $300 million to give.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's the, you talked about this at the very beginning, like it's about being in those rooms, right? And so it's to be able to have the power to be the person to look at someone that I guess looks like you, if that's the thing that's gonna invigorate you to give someone a chance. And that when I hear that, it's just really unlikely that that's gonna happen to me or happen to you, because it's rare that I'm sitting across from someone that reads like me, at least in this form, right? I think in here, yes, always, but rarely in this form.
That's such a beautiful answer, by the way. Like,
I know, thank you.
Literally, I'm like,
I know, thank you.
often when there's investment going to authentic voices or authentic scripts or things that are taking risk, it's much harder to get those made just because they're not common or traditional. So I think in the future it would be really nice to live in a world where there are being decisions being made for the quality and the craftsmanship, even though it's risky, it's hard to make, even though it's going to be a risk, than just because it's safe. And I think a lot of, and that's why a lot of those decisions are being made the way they're being made, is because somebody doesn't want to lose their job, or because it's just easy. So yeah, I mean, I would love in the future, if I am ever sitting with $300 million, and I would love to be able to invest it in movies that are different or that are just told from different perspectives.
I wanted to say thank you all so much for being here today with us. Thank you to McDonald's for having us, BuzzFeed Inc. Thank you to our amazing panelists for chatting it up.
Thank you.
Thank the wonderful audience.
Thank you for hanging.
Visit spotlightdorado.com to learn more.